I'm Jaime Agostino, and this is Financial Minds Meet the Experts. On this show, we're joined by financial industry experts to talk about topics, trends, and themes that credit unions professionals need to know about. Today on Financial Minds Meet the Experts, we continue our 4-week series, The Evolution of Credit Unions, by focusing on FinTech. Joining me is Dave DeFazio, partner, StrategyCorps. Dave, thank you so much for joining me. How have you been?
Oh, I've been great, Jaime. It's good to see you and to be able to spend some time with you today. So thanks for having me on.
Oh, absolutely. Um, every time I look, there are new technologies and fintechs. What factors have led to this evolution in the financial services industry?
Yeah, I think, technology is certainly an enabler, right? So, I know my phone is permanently attached to my hand and, really is an extension of my brain, right? And so, as technology changes, we seek out new ways to integrate that into our lives. And I feel like an old guy now. I'm in my 50s, and I think of if I'm somebody that depends on depends on technology as much as I do. Now look at some of these young people, and gosh,
Yeah.
they've grown up, literally with a phone in their hands, and I can probably say literally almost every day of their life they hear there's an app for that, right? And so I think people are changing, and so now when we have a need for something, we look for these technology gadgets and go to the app store and talk to our friends. And so our industry is undergoing that transformation, like all industries are, and it's these amazing changes in consumer behavior enabled by our phones that I think is driving that.
All right. Well, and how has fintech changed the way consumers are looking at these financial service needs?
Yeah, I think it's for me, personally, and I think I would generalize this to lots of people. It's helping me discover financial needs that I didn't even know I had even just a few years ago, right? So if you've ever seen me speak before, I talk a lot just about apps, and I demonstrate them and talk about how they're changing the way that we think. So a couple of examples that I like to use, that are relevant to my life. There's an app that I discovered called Expensify, and I'm a road warrior. I'm on the road, all the time, and expense reports were I hated expense reports. It was just something that you had to put up with as a road warrior. But then I discovered this app, Expensify, and what it allows me to do is to take pictures of my receipts. And now, instead of having to keep track of a bunch of paper receipts as I'm out traveling, I take the picture, and the app automatically reads the information off of the receipt and stores it into my expense reports automatically for me. So, I didn't say, oh my gosh, I need to, totally automate my travel behaviors, but this app kind of discovered me, and it's like, oh my gosh, where has this been my entire life, right? So I think that's a great example of it. Other apps, like maybe like Credit Karma is another one that I talk a lot about. That I'm a person that had a good credit score and took great care in managing my financial health. But even somebody like me that does a good job with my credit health, Credit Karma is helping me, uncover even more insights about the way that I manage that part of my life, and keeping things tidy, maximizing my credit score. And so I really like that word. It's a discovery, I think, for people. New gadgets are coming available to us, and it's expanding the definition of financial advice.
Mhm. Well, and you add the past 2 years and the pandemic. How has the pandemic influenced fintech?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly has accelerated it, right? I mean, we had all that time, to ourselves or to our families, and so, it's hard to imagine us using our phones more, than we already were. But I think the pandemic certainly contributed to that. And then I talk a lot about the subscription society, think Sam's Club, Costco, Amazon Prime, AAA, Netflix, Spotify, and certainly pre-pandemic, we were, solidly in the subscription society. But I felt like pre-pandemic that we were almost hitting a stage of subscription fatigue, right? We were getting too many subscriptions. But now I look at my life here a couple of years later, and it's impossible for me to imagine. But I've got way more subscriptions than I ever had. Like when I heard that Disney Plus was going to be launched, I'm like, there's no way. I'm a grown man. I'm never going to subscribe to that. But guess who's a Disney Plus subscriber now, right? So Mandalorian, and I'm singing those Hamilton songs like they're going out of style. And so it's hard for me to imagine like just how much change has happened so quickly, and we're just a consuming society, a technology society, and it's a really fascinating and interesting thing.
Yeah, it truly is fascinating, and I'm right there with you. I mean, we have them all. I have two younger children, and so we've got Disney Plus, we've got Hulu, we've got. I mean, there's a lot, but you know what? There's an app for that. If you think you have too many subscriptions, there's an app you can connect to, and they'll tell you if are you not using this? Cancel. So that's right. Out there too.
There's a whole bunch of really neat services there. Yeah, we in my house, I joke that. It's no joke. It's true. We subscribe to all of the music services, right? so my daughter is a young person, so she navigates to Spotify. My wife really likes her iPhone and how that integrates with some of the other devices that she uses. So she likes Apple Music. And then I like Amazon Music because it works on airplanes, unlike some of the other ones. So so we end up paying for all of them. So, oh my gosh, it's embarrassing to admit that sometimes.
Well, I mean, I've had the pleasure to see you present the education session, the one titled "The Future and the Impact of Mobile Banking Apps." And in that, it's a great presentation for anyone listening that hasn't seen it. Really would advise you to watch it. But in that, you demo a lot of these apps. And so those that haven't seen the presentation, what are some of the ones that you present during the presentation, and how are they impacting the financial industry?
Yeah, exactly. I've mentioned a couple of them already. I talk about Expensify. I talk about Credit Karma a lot. Credit Karma specifically is one that I think every person in our industry should be studying very carefully. So obviously, they have a lot of users. It's now more than 100 million users. It's a mind-boggling statistic. And so a lot of those are young people. So about half of the millennials subscribed and use Credit Karma, and they're translating that trust and these insights about financial health that I mentioned into cross-selling. And so far they have referred about 40 billion in loans, primarily to the mega banks, right? So they look at your credit scores and credit reports, they find opportunities to make better product offers to you. And so, in one regard, they're stealing our cross sells of the future, right? So I talk about that one. The one that I'm probably is the star of the show of my latest presentation is the app that's called Chime. Mm-hmm. And Chime has been growing its user base very rapidly over the last couple of years. At the start of 2020, they reported that they had about 4 million accounts. By the middle of 2020, it was up to 8 million accounts. And then by the end of 2020, we were estimating about 12 million accounts. So growing very, very rapidly, especially with young people. Mm-hmm. And so in my speeches, I tell stories about, my life and my family. And so my daughter is in her third year of college, and I talked about, Chime and how it's advertising to people in her age category, and how she's discovering, new financial needs and making independent financial decisions, for the first time in her life. And it's kind of eerie, Chime's just there, like in all of these different places where she's evolving her life, making referrals to other fintechs, helping her discover things to, maximize her credit score. I mean, it's a great little one-stop shop for these people that are in this discovery phase. And then obviously, if you've been watching the news, the fintechs led by Chime, no overdrafts, right? And now there's a rapid change, particularly amongst the giant banks, to evolve that. So I think Chime's having a very big impact on what I call featureization, how we're designing our products and making them appealing to, particularly young people.
Yeah. Some credit unions, they're hesitant to move forward with newer technologies. What would you say to these credit unions? They may not see the need to implement these new financial technologies for their members right now.
Yeah, hey, I get it. It's a lot to keep up with. There's so many things that we have to do to, to think competitively and to evaluate all the hundreds of things that you could do. What are the exact right things that you should do? So I think it's complicated to interpret the marketplace. And then I think another challenge is that, for for many of the community size institutions, is that they feel maybe that, they're kind of frozen in place because maybe their core processors are in control of so much that they do from a technology standpoint, right? But what I've challenged them to do is, look, it's not like you're going to go and outcompete these giant banks or have as much money to spend as some of these fintechs. I saw a stat this week that I think Chase had approved nearly a $20 billion technology budget for this year. I mean,
Wow.
It's hard to even imagine what that scale, right? So my message, typically is that, look, don't worry about out competing, all of these giant organizations. Just, you got to watch where they're going. You got to monitor the gaps, so that, if you're a community size institution, you don't fall too far behind on the things that become popular quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got to really forge a great relationship with your core processor. Tell them the things that you're studying, show them the directions and the strategies that you think are going to be important, and then create great partnerships, right? There are companies like my company and companies like your company, Jaime, that, our whole mission is to help our community sized financial institution clients, compete better. And so, it can be frustrating to monitor all those things and a little bit confusing, but seek out the help of your partners. And I think that's a great place to start.
All right. How will implementing these new financial technologies help the credit union evolve and stay competitive, though?
Yeah, it is a grand challenge, right? We're undergoing that. My area of expertise happens to be retail banking products, specifically with, things like checking accounts. That's my area of expertise. So not pitching my products, but the checking account is undergoing a massive transformation, right? We think of really the last 2 or 3 decades of our industry has pretty much been defined just by free checking. So if you were a credit union and you had free checking, there were overdrafts that produced income, and that's pretty much all you had to do with your checking accounts. But now we're undergoing a transformation in the financial structures of our products. So I mentioned the changes and evolution of overdraft strategies. Like, just in the last couple of weeks, 4 or 5 of the largest banks in the country have dramatically changed their overdraft strategies and policies. And that's going to have a trickle down effect, putting pressure on all of us. So the financial contributions of our accounts are changing. And then I've already mentioned the behavior changes that are happening, right? And so here we have our anchor product. Just ask anybody, where do you bank today? They're going to tell you the credit union where they have their checking account. And so I think that some of these fintech companies have kind of sensed that is a spot where we have a weak connection that's managing our relationships with our members. And so they're kind of hitting us in the checking accounts and trying to, to steal relationships using it. Just think of all the different apps that now offer, like PayPal has a checking account, Venmo has a checking account. Credit Karma has relation, they're owned by the same company that owns Mint. They have checking accounts. Acorns has a checking account. So we've got all of these brand new upstarts that are hitting us in the checking accounts and trying to offer exciting new evolution in a place where we haven't really paid, I think, close enough attention as an industry.
Okay. What should a credit union look for in a fintech partner?
Yeah, I think that, someone that cares about the same things that they do, right? So, there are lots of different kinds of fintechs out there. There are fintechs that go direct to consumers. There are fintechs that, support, the apps and companies that are out there today. And then there are fintechs that, that design their business models in a B to B to C, that offer services to banks and credit unions to enable them to grow new, sources of fee income or revenue, or to deliver new kinds of experiences and products. So, there's so many of us fintech kinds of companies that have recognized that, gosh, this is, it's a better business to go to, the places that have a lot of the relationships already and then work together to, make improvements there. And so, a lot of the ones that I talk about in my speeches are direct to consumer apps, because they're the ones that are, making the change happen. But if you find a particular app or service that is interesting to you, now seek out some of the new infrastructures that are creating. Like there's one that's gotten some attention here recently. It's a consortium of some community-sized financial institutions. It's called Chuck. And it's a new kind of P2P service, but it was invented and created by some community-sized institutions that got together, and they were looking for some, alternative to Zelle, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So look for those partners that are tailor-made, design their businesses around helping, whatever size institution you are, compete in a complicated world.
As far as, credit unions in general, like, unfortunately, the average age of the credit union members is probably a little older than what maybe we would want as an industry. So, I mean, trying to tap into some of these younger generations, Gen Z, millennials, because they're the ones, we're going to see a lot of them here into the future, and they're going to need a lot of financial needs. And as you're stating, they're the ones using these fintechs and these apps. I mean, is this what they're going to need? Do they need, these fintechs? Do they need to do any gamification? Like, that's what we need to start attracting. So what services or what fintechs do they specifically need? Or is it just about, joining those partners and having things like Chime to do some of that cross-selling and things like that?
Yeah, I think it could be, there's so much creativity that you can, use here as you tackle these new challenges and look for ways to evolve your products. Like one of the features that has been popularized very recently is the get your paycheck 2 days early thing, right? You've heard of that?
Oh yeah.
So Chime was one of the ones that made that kind of a household feature. But what I discovered, when I heard about it, I started talking to some of my clients about it. And some of them have been doing this already for a long time, right? One of my clients said, we've been doing that for a decade, but we just didn't tell anybody about it, right?
Yeah.
So I think, looking for these things like that, I discovered it's really not that hard to do something like that. And so, looking at the things that are popular and then saying, hey, look, is there some way we could do that? Like there's a really small credit union in Southern California that we work with. And, their CEO has heard me talk about Chime quite a few times. And so he just said, hey, we had this wake up call and said, look, if this is a feature that's popular, why don't we just talk about it and talk to our providers? And so guess what? This is one of the smallest credit unions that we work with. And they're now offering a feature that allows their members to get their paycheck 2 days early, and it didn't really take them that much work. So if they can do something like that, it's to me, it's just making it your mission, asking your members, what are the things that you like about, these kinds of products or those kind of products. And again, closing that gap when you find things that are popular.
All right. Well, thank you. I know StrategyCorps. Obviously, I want you to talk a little bit about StrategyCorps. So you offer a mobile rewards program. Tell me, what is Bazing and how could it benefit credit unions and their members?
That's right. Yeah. So StrategyCorps, we're based here in Nashville, and we've been at this for nearly 20 years now, and we work with financial institutions all over the country. We do have a couple of toolboxes. One of them that you named is called Bazing, and as you said, it's a collection of added value benefits, non-traditional kinds of benefits that our clients use to make their products better. So think of things like cell phone protection or roadside assistance or identity theft tools or discounts for shopping and lots of ways that we can help members, make money or save money in their life. And so I think of it kind of like the Amazon Prime of checking accounts, right? So think about that. If you go to Amazon, you can shop for free at Amazon, or you can choose to buy an Amazon Prime membership for a few bucks and get a lot more value, right? And there are lots of people that enjoy being a member of Amazon Prime. So we use Bazing in a very similar way to support the business strategies of our credit union clients. We take Bazing, we attach it to a checking account, and then Amazon Prime, right? So most of our clients continue to have some kind of low cost or free checking account, but they'll also offer a value-based checking account. Maybe we call it value checking. And for a small fee, typically about $5 or $6 or $7 a month, they can take advantage of lots of additional features. That's why I call it the Amazon Prime of checking account. So in a world where subscription behaviors continue to evolve, we help our clients find somewhere between 30 and 50% of their members who will choose to pay for a checking account, even though they could choose a free option. And it's, I don't think it's an accident, that percentage. Amazon Prime is in about 54% of American households. So it turns out about half of us are subscription buyers, right? So we just make subscription style checking account products for people, and they really love them because the benefits are cool.
Yeah, no, you're speaking to me because I have Amazon Prime. I have all these apps. I mean, I'm using subscription-based stuff, so it all makes sense to me because I'm using it. So I can only imagine the generations a little younger than me how they're going about things. And I'm raising two kids. They've had phones. My son is 9. He's had a phone for over a year. So I mean, he's had it since he was 8, and he's glued to it. So I can only imagine what the future holds for him. But Dave, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to join me and just kind of talk about these fintechs and just kind of put some thoughts into everyone's minds as far as with credit unions and how they can think outside the box and have these partnerships to really kind of target the needs of the consumers based on all of the evolution that's occurring around us. So really appreciate that.
Awesome. My pleasure.
All right. And I also want to thank Paymoli for sponsoring this episode of Financial Minds Meet the Experts. Paymoli is a simple solution to offer credit union members who are looking for a secure P2P solution. With a mobile payments convergent platform, Paymoli, it's easy for credit union members to send money to anyone, anytime, using their smartphone or tablet, and for you to keep your members' deposits safe and protected in their existing account. To learn more about Paymoli, contact your corporate account manager. All right. Thank you again, Dave. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Great. Thank you, Jamie. Have a great day.
You too.